Hi everyone, I'm Amy Lee Miller. Let's talk about looking within. Scary, however necessary. I talk about this in other videos and it keeps coming up for me to speak on, maybe because it keeps coming up in life and maybe always will. In order to become better versions of ourselves, every day it's up to us to fight against those natural tendencies that are our human nature, the beliefs and mindsets that can sometimes hold us back. One of those very natural tendencies is to look outside of ourselves for the answers. Life can sometimes feel very challenging and the things we want can feel so far away, but it doesn't have to be this way. Maybe we had some unfortunate events in our childhood. I wonder if there's any one person out there who hasn't. Parents are people too, doing their best and doing what they know how. Sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not. So what if we do have some bad beliefs about ourselves that were instilled and maybe some negative patterns that we've been holding on to? We can keep holding on to these, maybe staying angry, maybe blaming others, or we can let that anger come up and move out and we can decide what we want moving forward. I feel like my messaging works best by being, well, me, which is being very honest. So here goes. When I was a little girl, I was very bossy. Surprise, that's sarcasm for anybody who knows me well. To this day, I love bossy little girls. Why? Because they're strong. They're not going to get pushed around. They are doing their best to stand their ground and hold their own at 6, 7, 8 years old, and you can bet they will continue to do that at 20, 30, and 40. So I say, good for you, little girls. Keep being you and don't let anyone tell you differently. Okay, so that was me. Even in kindergarten, on the first day of class, I would look around the room and decide who was going to be my boyfriend. I would tell him about it, and he would be. It doesn't work like that when you get older. Sorry, little girls. And at recess, I would decide whatever make-believe game my group of friends and I were playing, and who would play who, and they would listen. It was always Dukes of Hazzard, by the way, and I was always Daisy. What a little brat. And the same went for me on the first day of middle school. I was a tiny little 6th grader, very nervous and intimidated by the new big building and all of the big scary 8th graders. And still, I stayed true to myself by standing up for what I felt was right. I was waiting in line for the school bus, and this big scary 8th grader who towered over me decided she was going to push me around. She cut in front of me, and while I was terrified of what might happen, like maybe she was going to punch me or something, I didn't know, but I made a decision. I looked her right in the eye and sternly said, I was here, you don't cut in front of me. And while her face had attitude, she did nothing. She got back in line behind me and never bothered me again. I was never bullied. So you can imagine maybe how at times it was challenging to parent this big, bold personality that I had. And I'm certain that my mom meant well and had good intentions. However, her parenting style was to try to control, stifle, box in, and ultimately try to change the personality that I had. And we can't change people, even kids, and we can't control people, even kids. What we can do is ask them questions to try to understand what's going on inside their little heads and why they're acting the way they are. And then we can guide and direct them. However, in order to best teach our kids how to navigate their lives for themselves as they get older, it is important to encourage them to keep being themselves. So as a little girl, I got into trouble a lot. I would get punished for speaking up, for standing up for myself, for pushing back when I felt I was being wronged. And while the actions were well-meaning, the outcome down the line was very bad for me. I was being conditioned to apologize for myself, and that strong little girl was being weakened. I would be sitting in my room in trouble for days, weeks, sometimes even months, and I knew it would continue until I begged for forgiveness. And sometimes I didn't even know what it was I was apologizing for. I just knew that that was the only way I would again be accepted into the family. So then when I got older and was able to make decisions for myself, I made terrible choices in relationships. I was taught I wasn't worthy of love and attention, that I needed to beg for it and to apologize for myself. So then when things wouldn't work out in these dysfunctional relationships that I chose, that's exactly what I did. I would blame myself, and I continued with this pattern for many, many years. So how do we change deep-rooted patterns like these? By looking within, by really listening to ourselves and maybe acknowledging how bad it feels and that we want something different for ourselves. There are also exercises we can do, both mental and written, on how to reparent ourselves. Why is it so important to look within? Because how can we solve a problem if we don't know what it is? Simple example, directions. We're on the phone with someone before the days of Google Maps and they're giving us directions to get where they are. And they jump right into telling us which way to turn without first understanding which direction we're facing. Without knowing where we are, exactly what our scenario or problem is, how can they solve it? Another example, sales. I've been in sales for kind of a long time, so an analogy I can easily relate to. What makes a good salesperson, for starters, is the ability to uncover a need. We cannot solve our customers' problems without first understanding what it is they need. And oftentimes, even they don't understand exactly what their need is. They just know something could work a little more smoothly over here. So if we're in there trying to sell them this perfectly crisp, slightly sweet, a little tart apple, that's the kind of apples I like, but what they really need is an orange, we're not helping them. We're just creating more of a problem by annoying them. It is a salesperson's job to get curious, to ask questions, to dig deep, and then to really listen. Then what happens? More questions come up until, aha, we've identified the issue. Oh, it was an orange you needed. I'm so glad we figured that out. Let me show you what I have over here. Okay, that's a little cheesy, but you get the idea. In order to figure out and present the right solution, we have to first uncover the real issue. Solving problems in our personal life is no different. In order to make impactful changes, we have to first understand what the underlying issue really is. I went through 10 years of therapy. I read lots of self-help and spiritually enlightening books. I even started looking within to fill a void that was there. As a result, I did have tremendous personal growth and a lot of achievements I was very proud of, but I was still unhappy because of the repeating pattern that I wasn't able to change because I didn't understand why it was happening. I still kept attracting relationships that were dysfunctional, and when they didn't work out, I would blame myself rather than seeing that these guys were not able to treat me well because they didn't feel good about themselves, and I was attracting them because I didn't feel good about myself because of things that I was taught growing up. I was taught to question the strongest thing that I have, my intuition. But when I finally began to really look within, I began to see and understand what was going on with me. And then I was able to begin the process of changing it. It's easy to stick our head in the sand and avoid the real issue. The problem is hard to solve because it's hiding under many layers over many years. And in order for us to finally fix it, the issue has to surface. But we can do it. That's why we're here, to learn the lessons and keep becoming better, happier versions of ourselves and to have the things we truly desire. That power is within you. And then success and happiness starts to come easier. We've all been through different challenges. However, the healing process is the same. It starts within you. I'm Amy Lee Miller. Yes, you can.